Everyone remembers the Phantom, but that's only the beginning. Here's every US jet used in the Vietnam War. Don't blink. Starting with the attack and strike jets. The Douglas A-4 Skyhawk. This was the Navy's primary light attack jet during the war. It's also the aircraft John McCain was flying when he was shot down over Hanoi. Then the Grumman A-6 Intruder, a heavy-hitting all-weather bomber, feared for its low-level night strikes against North Vietnamese targets during Operation Rolling Thunder. Next, the LTV A-7 Corsair II, a precise subsonic bomber that arrived later in the conflict and played a major role in the 1972 linebacker bombing campaigns. Now take a look at the Cessna A-37 Dragonfly. Built for counterinsurgency, this super tweet saw extensive use in close air support with both U.S. forces and the South Vietnamese Air Force. And the Douglas A-3 Sky Warrior, better known as the Whale. It remains the largest jet ever operated regularly from an aircraft carrier during the war. Next up, strategic and tactical bombers. The Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, the giant of the air war. Its arc-light carpet bombing missions, along with the 1972 Christmas bombings, cemented its terrifying reputation in the skies. Then there's the Martin B-57 Canberra, a tactical bomber built for night interdiction, hunting supply trucks along the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos, followed by the Douglas B-66 destroyer. Though originally designed as a bomber, it was used primarily for electronic intelligence, guiding strike groups safely to their targets. Now moving into fighter and interceptor jets. The McDonnell Douglas F-4 Phantom II, the most iconic fighter of the war. It served as the primary MiG killer for the Air Force, Navy, and Marines. The Vought F-8 Crusader, known as the last of the gunfighters, earned a reputation for agility and maintained the highest kill-to-loss ratio against North Vietnamese MiGs. The North American F-100 Super Sabre, a key close air support jet for troops in South Vietnam, and the aircraft flown by the early Misty forward air controllers. Then the Republic F-105 Thunder Chief, or THUD. It carried the weight of strike missions over North Vietnam and pioneered wild weasel tactics against enemy SAM sites. The Convair F-102 Delta Dagger, Delta Wing interceptors stationed at Tan Son Nhut and Da Nang early in the war to guard against potential air raids. The Lockheed F-104 Starfighter, a supersonic interceptor briefly deployed to Da Nang in Thailand, providing high-speed escort for strike formations and radar aircraft. The Northrop F-5 Freedom Fighter, tested in combat under the Scotia Tiger program, later became the backbone of the South Vietnamese Air Force. The General Dynamics F-111 Aardvark, using advanced terrain-following radar to fly dangerous low-level solo missions over North Vietnam in the war's final years. The Grumman F-14 Tomcat, entering combat right at the end of the war, providing top cover during the evacuation of Saigon in Operation Frequent Wind. And the North American FJ-4B Fury, a classic swept-wing jet adapted from a fighter into a low-level strike aircraft for the Navy. Now moving on to reconnaissance and intelligence jets. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird, flying at Mach 3, carried out high-altitude reconnaissance missions over North Vietnam, gathering intelligence no enemy could intercept. Before it, the Lockheed A-12 Oxcart, a top-secret CIA project and the Blackbird's forerunner, flew high-speed reconnaissance over the north. The Lockheed U-2 Dragon Lady, operating at the edge of space, monitored SAM sites and troop movements throughout the conflict. The McDonnell RF-101 Voodoo, a fast photo recon jet, flew dangerous low-level solo missions to capture images of North Vietnamese defenses before and after major strikes. The North American RA-5C Vigilante, a sophisticated carrier-based reconnaissance aircraft, used advanced multi-sensor cameras to map enemy territory, often at great cost due to its high-risk missions. The Vought F-8 Crusader, a modified fighter fitted with cameras instead of guns, allowed pilots to get dangerously close and document the battlefield. And finally, the Boeing RB-47H Stratojet, a specialized strategic platform that gathered electronic signals while flying carefully planned routes along the edges of the conflict zone. Continuing with electronic warfare and SIGINT jets, the Douglas EB-66 Destroyer, an essential electronic warfare platform, equipped with powerful jammers to shield American strike packages from North Vietnamese radar and SAM threats. Then the Grumman EA-6 Prowler. Entering the war later on, this dedicated jammer played a critical role in blinding enemy air defenses during the intense Linebacker II bombing operations. Next, the Douglas EA-3B Sky Warrior, a true double threat on the carrier deck. It could either refuel other jets or jam enemy signals, depending on what the mission demanded. The Douglas EF-10B Sky Knight, an older aircraft repurposed for a new mission, provided early electronic jamming support for Marine Corps operations during the air war. Then there's the Boeing RC-135 series, a large intelligence-gathering platform. It operated from a distance, listening in on enemy communications from high altitude and delivering critical intel. And the Boeing EC-135, a flying command post. It managed complex air operations and maintained communications across the entire theater. Next up, jet-powered unmanned drones. The Ryan 147 Lightning Bug, an early unmanned drone designed to photograph high-threat areas like Hanoi and Haiphong, carrying out dangerous reconnaissance missions without putting a pilot at risk. The Ryan BQM-34 Firebee, a remote-controlled scout. It carried out high-altitude reconnaissance missions and was also used to test the strength and response of enemy air defenses. Now moving into transport, tanker, and VIP jets. The Boeing KC-135 Stratotanker, the indispensable young tiger. These tankers made it possible for fuel-hungry fighters and bombers to strike deep into North Vietnam and still make it home. The Lockheed C-141 Starlifter, famously known as the Hanoi Taxi. This jet brought home the first American POWs during Operation Homecoming in 1973. Then the Lockheed C-5 Galaxy, a massive airlifter that played a crucial role in transporting heavy equipment into South Vietnam during the 1972 Easter Offensive. The Lockheed C-140 Jetstar, small but fast, was used to move high-ranking officers and urgent documents quickly between bases. The McDonnell Douglas C-9 Nightingale, a specialized flying hospital, transformed how wounded soldiers were evacuated, rapidly transporting them from the war zone to hospitals in the United States. The Boeing 727, a familiar commercial airliner, was adapted to move large numbers of troops in and out of the region efficiently. And the Boeing 747, the original jumbo jet, took on the enormous task of transporting thousands of military personnel across the ocean. The Lockheed AP-2H OP-2E Neptune, specially modified for Operation Igloo White. These aircraft deployed acoustic and seismic sensors along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, tracking North Vietnamese truck convoys deep in the jungle.